I'm heading to McDonald Pass in Montana to visit a relic of our earliest days of flight. Transportation-wise, this place is definitely off the grid.
Oh, that was fun. I feel like I'm standing on top of the world.
We pretty much are. We're on top of the Continental Divide.
They call Montana Big Sky Country, and it does look pretty empty up here. But this 90-foot tower holds a clue to how we learn to navigate our crowded skies. Mike Rogan is with the Montana Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division.
So, I mean, what do these things basically do?
They give you a visual reference when you're flying at night.
So these literally are kind of like lighthouses in the sky.
Yes.
The story of this air beacon dates back to the birth of commercial air travel in the 1920s. Aviation companies were eager to fly cross-country, but they had no way to navigate the night portion of the 30-hour trip. So they invented one, paying farmers to light bonfires in their fields, creating a path of flames to guide pilots through the night. They soon replaced the bonfires with a network of 1,500 gas beacons.
220, you're coming in nicely. You're 25 feet, too low, pull her up a wee bit.
By the 1960s, modern radar was replacing the gas beacons, except in Montana, where the peaks of the Rockies block radar signals, leaving pilots to rely on the old beacons so they wouldn't crash into the mountains. To this day, Mike continues to tend the beacons and make sure they're in good working order.
That's a heck of a climb. That's a long one, isn't it?
So this is what the pilots actually see.
This lamp is focused in the middle of this 24-inch mirror, and as it's turning around, you get a sharp flash as you're approaching the beacon. When you see the beacon, it looks like it's flashing. That's because it's turning around. You're only getting it for a second.
Even though every other state has long since abandoned the beacons, we still live with their legacy.
Many of the first radar towers were built along this network of gas beacons, which means that if you take a commercial flight today and fly along one of the early skyways, your path will look like a zigzag that traces the lines that sprang up from bonfire to bonfire and then beacon to beacon.
From bonfire to beacon to radar, we've made progress. But as our skies got busier, we needed a way to handle the traffic. Enter the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, which maintains our complex flight management system today. Here's how it works. Each airport's control tower guides each plane to takeoff. Then a regional control center keeps tabs on it until it reaches 10,000 feet, where the flight enters one of the 21 en route centers across the country. And watching over the entire system are the people in this state-of-the-art bunker in Northern Virginia. People like Flight Manager Deborah Griffith.
Air Traffic Control System Command Center.
This place is immense.
Yes.
I feel like I'm in that movie War Games or something.
No.
What are all those lights up on that screen right there?
Those are flights. Those are the active flights in the system right now.
How many planes are we looking at?
During the peak portion of the day, we're 5,000 to 6,000 flights active.
It's Tuesday afternoon. Just an ordinary day for Deborah, who's sort of a traffic cop of the skies.
Good morning, everybody. This is Deb Griffith with you for the 1215 Planning Telecon. We're going to start with New York, having the gusty winds. Good morning, New York.
Good morning, thank you. We are on a 3-3 left.
Every 2 hours, Deborah leads what could be the biggest conference call in the world. Thousands of passengers' lives are on the line.
All right, let's go out west to Southern California, Franklin. Can you give us any more information?
San Diego, right now, just nobody's getting in with the RVRs and the low ceilings. So we
Every major airline, airport, shipping company, the Secret Service, NASA, and the military listen in for updates to the National Flight Plan.
Looks like Cleveland, where I IFR, so we're going to add them into terminal constraints for IFR ceilings and viz. Okay, that'll conclude this telecom. We'll be back with you at 14:15, Command Center South. Thank you.
As soon as she hangs up, Deborah begins juggling this network's limited airspace to keep traffic flowing.
Got an update on San Francisco forecast. Actually put ceilings in there for a few hours this morning.
All right, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
She reroutes planes around San Francisco's fog and grounds others so they won't get caught in a bottleneck caused by strong winds over New York.
31's at Kennedy.
Right now the volume's down for the next 4 hours. We'll see how that rolls.
So it's kind of like a butterfly effect, where you have a disruption in one place and it ripples all the way across the country.
It does have a ripple effect. It does. So because New York is slowed down, it's going to historically slow down the other markets around it, because those airplanes go in and out of New York and go to Fort Worth and to Houston and to Memphis and to Chicago and to Cleveland.
All these flights depend on Deborah's ability to manage America's airspace. She's good at it, and the system works well, most of the time. But the problem with this system is that it's based on radar, aging technology that requires air traffic controllers to leave large safety margins between each plane, which means fewer planes can take to the skies. With our airways nearing maximum capacity, the FAA needs a game changer. If the air beacons in Montana recall aviation's past, you can get a taste of our future by heading to an even more isolated part of the country. This is rush hour in Juneau, Alaska. Only 10% of this state is accessible by road, so up here, everyday commuting depends on pilots like Sam Wright.
Wow, it's beautiful. This totally beats my own commute.
Welcome to my office.
It may be beautiful, but over the past 20 years, 1/3 of all commuter plane crashes in the United States happened in Alaska. And Sam flies these treacherous skies every day.
Sam, what exactly is your job?
My job is to take people and freight, mail, UPS, FedEx, from Juneau, which is the jet port, to all the smaller communities around Southeast Alaska.
What are some of the more common and uncommon things that you've transported?
Well, very, 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 very pregnant women.
Taking them to the hospital for delivery?
Yeah, taking them to Juneau for delivery. That's the scariest thing to me. Knock on wood, I've made it every time. But wolves, we've carried bears, carried a really pissed off wolverine this winter. The wolverine was going to Minnesota or someplace to be bred, and he didn't know that, so he was just flat unhappy.
So you really are sort of like the connective tissue that allows these outlying communities to interact on a daily basis with the rest of the world.
That's true. We look at ourselves more like just a little air road system.
And how hard is it to fly around here? Is it challenging?
Well, today's like a gorgeous day, right? You can see for 80 miles, 100 miles. There's some days we can only see 2 miles.
In Alaska, as in Montana, rows of mountains block radar signals, and the snow and fog can quickly roll in from the ocean, forcing pilots to fly blind among the glaciers. So pilots like Sam are using a new satellite-based GPS system, which, unlike radar, can reach every corner of their airspace.
So basically this shows you everything that's in your immediate vicinity, right?
Absolutely. If you make a turn towards something higher than you, that will turn red.
Okay.
It will say, hey, this is red. This is not a good idea.
In Alaska, the accident rate for planes that have been equipped with GPS has dropped by almost 50%. And this system that keeps Sam and his passengers safe is beginning to have a much wider impact. GPS is the backbone of a new FAA plan called NextGen, designed to completely overhaul air traffic control. Air Alaska was one of the first airlines to test this new technology. Their pilots, like Mike Adams, welcomed it.
One of the most advantageous features about the NextGen program is the ability now to navigate more directly. These blue symbols represent ground-based navigation aids that in prior times we would have been flying a zigzag line between those as we go from station to station. Now with GPS navigation we can fly directly from waypoint to waypoint, as you see here, and that allows us to shorten our route distance, create a more direct flight. And that in turn frees up airspace for other aircraft to occupy, hence increasing capacity.
The estimated cost for NextGen is high, as much as $160 billion. But it will allow the FAA to fly 1.3 billion passengers a year by 2031, twice as many as it can handle today. So far, I've been traveling mostly on planes and trains, all packed full of people. But most Americans prefer their personal space, so getting from A to B usually means one thing: cars. That's definitely true in Dallas. Here, like most of the country, Americans take driving for granted. We turn the key and go. But while driving feels like individual choice, it's only possible because of our system of highways, which is one of the busiest and most sophisticated pieces of infrastructure in the world. And we have grown so dependent on the freedom and mobility of the open road, collectively driving 3 trillion miles every year, that today the health of our country depends on the health of our highways. So specialists like traffic analyst Greg Jordan work behind the scenes to help improve the flow of traffic.
Look at that beauty.
The interchange is oddly elegant. You know, it's kind of like some sort of geometric shapes.
An aerial perspective will give you an insight that is sometimes very hard to get on the ground.
He's right. From the sky, I can see where cars are bottlenecking and where they're moving along at a nice clip. Local transportation planners from New York to California value Greg's expertise. He provides data so they can see for themselves where they need to invest in roads, where they need to build new ones, or widen them, or increase highway patrol.
And how are you actually getting that data?
Well, it's mainly time-lapse photography.
Looking at the snapshots Greg has taken over time, what strikes me is not just the roads themselves, but the number of housing developments hugging the highways.
This is a new development. This is in Louisville. It's right near the newly completed State Highway 121.
So these communities are only possible because of that freeway?
The freeway is the lifeblood. People like to say, if you build it, they will come. And to a degree, that's true.
Okay.
You know, if you build it, that encourages people.
This is what more and more of our country looks like today. A tapestry of suburban neighborhoods woven together by quiet streets and bordered by busy highways. When the federal government started building these interstate highways more than 50 years ago, they were intended to strengthen connections between far-flung cities, but they've ended up totally reshaping local communities. This is what the sleepy town of Arlington, Texas looked like in 1950. And this is what happened when Interstate 30 connected it to nearby Dallas and Fort Worth. Highways stretching north from Dallas lured people out to the cheap land and open space of Arlington and other suburbs like this one, Colleyville. And these suburbs gave birth to a whole new way of life.
This is a suburban dream, the cul-de-sac. Big houses surrounded by green lawns on a street with no through traffic. But living here comes at a cost.
To understand that cost, we used GPS to track the cars of everyone living on this tiny cul-de-sac for a week. Each color represents one of the 5 families. That pink car is Phil Thompson heading to work. There's Sabre Ewing driving her sons to school. Her husband Kip in the red car is on his way to the airport for a business trip. Our car culture is so common now that we forget how different it is from the rhythms of urban American life just a half-century ago. Modern suburbs promote a landscape where most things are accessible only by car. So these suburban residents spend much of their time behind the wheel. They drive to get coffee.
Thank you.
To do their banking. To buy groceries. In fact, they drive 50% more than their parents did.
I probably put on maybe 100 miles a day.
Wow.
Easily 25,000 or 30,000 miles a year.
But basically the assumption is that if you're going to live in this neighborhood, you have to have a car.
That's exactly right. The way they design Colleyville and our community is that since it's off the beaten path, you have to drive 10 or 15 minutes before you get to a major road.
And all this driving means our families walk a whole lot less.
Walking is definitely more recreational. I walk the dogs in the neighborhood to the mailbox and back.
Now, the other walking that I do is going to be from parking garages to appointments when I go to customer meetings between the rental car agency and the gates at the airports.
Most of us don't mind all this driving, but there's a problem. As suburban life evolves and our daily destinations change, our road system can't adapt fast enough. Look at our 5 families. They rarely venture into the city of Dallas all week. Our highways were designed to get people from the suburbs to jobs and stores in the central business districts. But nowadays, most people live, work, and shop in the suburbs, and the smaller secondary roads are jammed. On top of that, since we built our highway system, the population has doubled, and the number of cars on the road has more than tripled. That means more people stuck in traffic on roads that weren't designed to get them where they want to go. At the end of the week, after collectively navigating over 600 miles of suburban thoroughfares, our families return to the cul-de-sac. There are the Johnsons, last ones in. Meanwhile, a few miles away, road construction crews are just beginning their workday.
In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, planners are trying to reduce congestion by building their way out of the problem. This place is home to more road construction than anywhere else in the country. But it won't be long before this freeway attracts more people, creating more traffic and driving demand for even more roads. It's kind of an infinite construction loop. So some places are taking a different approach.